After 6 long months, we are finally back here on WrestleRant, where I, Graham Giuseppe Matthews, review all the pay-per-views that I watch from WWE, WCW, ECW, NXT, and yes, even Impact, TNA Wrestling, whatever you want to call it. There was no real reason for the show's hiatus, for those wondering. It's been over, like I said, 6 months since I last did an episode of WrestleRant. This is the first one of 2019, the longest hiatus the show has ever had. I've done them regularly since 2011. I took a bit of a break in late 2016 before the new year. This time around, it was just because I was busy. There was no real reason for why I took time off from WrestleRant. Obviously, we've still had other content going up here in the channel between the hashtags and the WrestleRant Radio excerpts, Network and Chill. But going forward, though, there will be no set certain day for WrestleRant videos to go up. In the past, it's been Fridays and Mondays and Tuesdays and the weekends and any random day of the week. Now it's really whenever I can watch a pay-per-view and review it. I realized before we went on the break for WrestleRant that committing to a certain day of the week for a video series like this is a bit of a roadblock sometimes. Not only with life being busy and stuff like that. It's been a busy past 6 or 7 months. But also, too, with the network content. Obviously, for Network and Chill, I try to put up new videos whenever there's new content on the network. But nowadays, there's no real set day for that either. New network stuff may go up on a Saturday, on a Sunday after a pay-per-view, on a Monday after Raw, at any other point during the week. And also, too, Miz and Mrs. is coming back in early August. I thought they weren't coming back until 2020. The show is coming back in a little over a month. I think it's still airing after SmackDown on Tuesdays. I might be mistaken about that. It might be Sundays now. I don't remember, because I know SmackDown's moving to Fridays and off the USA Network in October. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But anyway, though, so we won't have a certain day for WrestleRant videos moving forward. It's really going to be, hopefully, at least once a week on any day I can put up a video. Obviously, today it's a Monday. It might be Mondays moving forward. Who knows? It really depends when new network stuff goes up. But yeah, that's the lowdown. So again, I apologize for the absence of WrestleRant videos over the last 6 months. I've been debating in the last week what I should do for new videos moving forward. Now, I had a whole set schedule for videos I would talk about from literally 2014 to 2018 of videos and pay-per-views I should watch in this order. Obviously, after I got done with the WWE reviews about a year or two ago, I started reviewing the WCW pay-per-views, ECW pay-per-views, TNA pay-per-views in order. And I'll probably continue along with that. Thanks to John Ritland at Reborn Again on the Twitter machine for a few suggestions of WCW pay-per-views I can watch and review here for the channel. I might just do that. I really don't know. I'm OCD, so I like to go in order, chronological order of when the events aired. For the WCW shows, we're way back in the fucking late 80s at this point, if not early 90s. ECW, rather. I mean, I don't know how many more shows I have to watch of that before I get to the end. I really don't know. I might just watch whatever and post it whenever I want. In the past, it's been WCW show, ECW show, TNA show, and then a WWE show, like an old Royal Rumble from a year ago, or an NXT special from a year ago. I don't know if I'm going to continue along with that same schedule. I don't know. It's a lot more organized that way, but I kind of like the idea of just putting up reviews of pay-per-views I watch at random. Of pay-per-views I have yet to watch and review. The WWE ones, I've done all of those, except for reviewing the 2018 pay-per-views for WWE and the 2018 NXT TakeOver specials. Beyond that, we've talked about every WWE pay-per-view from 2017 and prior to that. So today we're talking about, I thought there was no better way to bring back WrestleRant than to talk about one of the most prolific TNA pay-per-views in the company's existence, with one of the greatest TNA main events I've ever seen, Unbreakable 2005. Now, this was a great show, and you can check it out on Impact Plus, which used to be formerly known as Global Wrestling Network. They updated the entire streaming service about 2 months ago, and it's way better off now. I mean, the GWN network, the GWN, wasn't terrible to use and whatnot. It was a pretty reliable service. But that being said, I think the interface and the layout and the just everything about Impact Plus is a lot easier to use. The navigation on the new service, on the new app, on the new streaming service, I think is excellent. So definitely check it out. I think it's still $9.99 a month, if not a little less. I think it might be like $8.99 or $7.99. But it's a good service. You don't get the new Impact pay-per-views on there until like well after the fact. But all the old content, it's well worth it for that alone. For a show like this, Unbreakable 2005. So we opened the show with a 6-man tag team match. The 3 Live Crew, 3LK, Ron Killings, BG, James, and Conan, taking on and beating the trio of the Diamonds in the Rough, a trio I never knew existed until now. I knew of Simon Diamond. I know of Elix Skipper from his early days in TNA. No idea who the fuck David Young is. Not a single clue. But this was a fine match. Nothing too exciting, nothing too great. The 3 Live Crew went over as they probably should have. Again, no idea who the hell the Diamonds in the Rough were until I saw them here. They didn't really show too much potential to me. I'm not really surprised that their faction did not last long in TNA. But this was a fine opening match with the right team going over. It ran about like 4 or 5 minutes, so it was exactly what it needed to be. After that, we had an excellent outing between Austin Aries and Roderick Strong. And yes, you heard me correctly. Austin Aries and Roderick Strong, who I forgot what their team name was in Ring of Honor, but they've teamed in actually 3 different promotions. They might be, aside from the Hardys, they might be the first team to team in 3 different promotions. These 3 different promotions. WWE, TNA, and Ring of Honor, which is pretty impressive. So they were in Ring of Honor originally. They actually mentioned that here. The commentators, Mike Tenay and Don West, brought up the fact that Aries and Strong were friends in Ring of Honor, and I think this was still during the time that the Ring of Honor TNA relationship was ongoing. And you can see ROH talent in Impact and vice versa. So it was a really cool working relationship. You could see matches like this. The commentators brought up that, yeah, they were tag team partners in Impact, or rather in Ring of Honor, and now in Impact, you could see them go one-on-one. And this was a great match. Very fun match, very hard-hitting, technical, maybe not masterpiece, but it was exactly what you would expect from 2 guys the caliber of Austin Aries and Roderick Strong. This was a lot of fun. Austin Aries, I believe, went over with a brainbuster here, his signature finisher. But fantastic match, and well placed early on in the card, too, while the crowd was still very much hot for it. Tag team action after that with Lance, Hoyt, and Apollo taking on Monty Brown and Kip James. Kip James and Monty Brown teased tension. This really was less about the match and more about if they can coexist. They did. They won the match. James and Monty Brown went over here after about a 10-minute match. Nothing special. Not really that good of a match. Wasn't terrible, but the match itself was complete throwaway. It was really all about the continued story with James and Brown and furthering that angle. So for what it was, I thought it was a success. As a match, wasn't exactly must-see. We then had Chris Sabin versus Petey Williams. No championships on the line here, just a flat-out X-Division outing. Fantastic shit here. Sean Waltman was supposed to be on this show. Or not Sean Waltman, I mean, he was, but that was something else, and I'll talk about that in a moment. He no-showed, but we were also supposed to have Shocker in this match, too, who was on a lot of the other TNA pay-per-views I reviewed here for WrestleRant a while ago. He got pulled from the pay-per-view. I don't know what the original match was supposed to be. I don't know if it was supposed to be Shocker versus Petey or Shocker versus Chris Sabin. I don't remember. But he got pulled, and it probably ended up being a better match. Now, that's not to say that Shocker is bad in any way. He was a really good talent. I could give 2 shits about Shocker, to be honest with you. Maybe it's because I'm not overly familiar with his work, but, like, the commentators would constantly say on commentary, oh, that's the guy from the McDonald's commercial, like he's some sort of big deal. Whoop-de-fucking-do. I'm glad we got this match instead. Sabin and Williams worked wonderfully together. I thought this was a fantastic match, and they got plenty of time, too, about 12, 13 minutes. This was a very good wrestling exhibition here between 2 guys that are also very, very good. So Chris Sabin goes over. Afterward, Matt Bentley came out, laid out both men to a big pop, too. I'm not overly familiar with Matt Bentley, but I do remember him from the earlier TNA pay-per-view. So he comes out, gets a big reaction, lays out both men. And I guess there was a thing going on at that time, and I don't remember the last time he was seen on TNA TV prior to this, but he comes out and makes the announcement that despite interest from WWE and the rumors that he might be WWE bound, he ultimately re-signed with Impact. That's his home. That's his tried and true. That's where he's sticking. And at Bound for Glory, they're going to bring back his specialty, Ultimate X, which the crowd and the commentators went fucking nuts for, which had not been done to death at that point in time in TNA's history. And now I feel like we get Ultimate X matches all the fucking time in TNA, or at least every other week we did a few years ago. But no, this was great stuff, and the post-match angle came off excellent, too. We had a no disqualification match up next between Abyss and Sabu. Now, Sabu is currently appearing on Impact TV every fucking week in 2019. And Impact's doing a lot better than they were years ago, but I am not a fan of trotting out all the ECW legends from Sabu. I like Tommy Dreamer, but seeing him on TNA TV every week is just sending the wrong message, in my opinion, because they're not having those really good of matches. The Sandman, even RVD. Like, leave these guys in the past. You don't need to keep bringing them back. But anyway, at this point, this was 2005. 14 years ago, Sabu, still very much capable of having a great match. So he goes in there with Abyss. They kill it here. I thought this was, again, exactly what it needed to be. It wasn't a Monsters Ball match. I'm surprised it wasn't given that stipulation, because I feel like we see that stipulation brought back every 6 months for the last 10, 15 years. But this was awesome. One of the better Sabu matches I've seen from WWE TNA. And Abyss, at this point, was firing on all cylinders. Whether it was Sabu, even someone like an AJ Styles, he went in there and killed it every fucking time. Jeff Hardy, another person who he worked wonderfully with back in the day in TNA's early days. But this was really good. Wasn't overly long, probably for the better that it wasn't. It was all hardcore spots, but the crowd was super into it. It felt like it was a big deal. It had that big fight feel to it, which is what I'm trying to say here. And again, the chemistry was just off the charts. In the end, Abyss went over, emerged victorious as he should have after about 11, 12-minute match. This, okay, I was going to say my favorite match on the show. Clearly it wasn't, given what the main event was on the show, but it was probably my second favorite match on the show. It was really, really good. Now, I'm not typically a fan of all the hardcore stuff, but given who was involved, this was perfect for their respective styles. Bobby Roode versus Jeff Hardy up next in a match that you would see on SmackDown in 2019. Surprisingly, this wasn't all that good. This was decent at best, kind of paled in comparison to other matches on the show. Maybe it was because they didn't really have that chemistry at this point. They went on to have really good matches back in 2011, 2012. This was not one of them. I thought this was kind of a throwaway match. Bobby Roode went over after interference from Jeff Jarrett, who helped Roode win with a fucking hockey stick, which, yes, what came into play towards the end of the match because of Team Canada and all that other shit. I think Roode going over was the right call, but the finish and the interference, I was not a fan of that. It's probably what kind of soured me on it, but the actual match wasn't anything special either. Again, not that it was bad, but definitely not what it could have been, what it could have been considering who was involved here. After that, we had a 4-way tag team elimination match for the NWA World Tag Team Championship. It was the then champions, the Naturals, versus America's Most Wanted, Team Canada, consisting of A1 and Eric Young, and then Alex Shelley and Johnny Candido. So Alex Shelley and Sean Waltman, who I mentioned earlier. Sean Waltman no-showed this show, but prior to that, Sean Waltman and Shelley had won the Candido Cup, I believe it was called, earning themselves a tag team title opportunity, I believe, in the process. So Waltman no-shows here. We get Johnny Candido instead, who must be the brother of Chris Candido, who had passed away months earlier. I don't know what his relation was, I forgot, to be honest with you, to Chris Candido, but he ended up teaming with Alex Shelley here. He was a fine replacement. Shelley kind of made it sound like he'd be teaming with no one, and he'd be flying solo here like it was Kane and fucking TLC 3 or whatever it was back in the day. Thankfully, that did not happen, but this was a pretty good match. I really liked the layout. Shelley and Candido were out first. You had to know they weren't winning when Waltman no-showed, and Candido was a last-minute replacement, but they fared well for the time they were in there for. America's Most Wanted was out second, and then it came down to the Naturals and Team Canada. Very good back and forth, went about 18 minutes. The Naturals emerging victorious against all odds to retain the NWA World Tag Team title. So again, really good match here. Smart layout. It shows that tag team wrestling still kind of meant something at this point in TNA's history, and it would for several years after that, but I feel like they have no tag team division in 2019. Now, LAX is awesome, but there's not many other tag teams beyond them and the Rascals, and that's really about it. The North, maybe, I guess, and that's really about it. But anyway, this was good. After that, we had the NWA World Heavyweight Championship on the line in a Ravens Rules match. How is that different from a no disqualification match, you ask? It really isn't. It was basically a no DQ match in favor of Raven. And then he faced Rhino. So Rhino was the challenger here. Raven was the champion. Raven walks in, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He was able to retain here against Rhino. Rhino had just debuted in Impact. He was gunning for the gold. He came up short here after Jeff Jarrett interfered and cost Rhino the victory. So that was a bit weird because it seemed like they were in cahoots, that Jarrett and Rhino were on track to getting Rhino to become the World Heavyweight Champion, but I guess not. So Jarrett interferes, cost him the victory. Raven goes over, still the champion. Great match, though. Again, a lot like Abyss and Sabu. Given the two guys that were involved and given their ECW backgrounds, this was perfect. And Rhino looked in amazing shape, too, by the way. He doesn't look terrible in 2019, but he was, motivated, and he was fucking killing it coming off his WWE departure. And they kind of took some shots at him backstage before the match, saying, oh, the handcuffs are off. I don't have to listen to any Hollywood producers and all this other bullshit anymore and all that stuff. Typical stuff that you would hear from an ex-WWE employee in TNA. But as a match, I thought this was awesome. Had that big fight feel for an NWA World title match. Not as good as Abyss and Sabu, and this did last a little longer, but it was still a very good hardcore match. And then the iconic main event, a three-way match for the X Division Championship. AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, who walked in as the champion, and Samoa Joe. This match is largely remembered as being one of the greatest matches in TNA's history. And rightfully so. You watch this thing and you're like, holy shit, this match is amazing. Not a single dull moment. All three guys have spectacular showings here. The crowd is white hot for it. The commentators are fucking jizzing their pants on commentary behind the announce desk. They're really treating this like this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And rightfully so, again, because this was a lot of fucking fun and the peak, in my opinion, of the X Division in TNA. These three guys defined what it meant to be an X Division competitor. Now, Christopher Daniels, the really cool thing about this match, for a variety of reasons, Christopher Daniels had been in the business for well over a decade. He wasn't exactly a spring chicken by this point. He was probably in his mid-30s, not as young as AJ Styles. Samoa Joe was a big dude, is a big dude, and he's not the stereotypical X Division guy, but he went in there flying around like an X Division guy, having this match like, holy shit, this match is amazing. And I think the last TNA pay-per-view that I watched, or one of the last TNA pay-per-views that I watched before we took the hiatus here on WrestleRant, was AJ and Samoa Joe for the X Division title. Or at least in a number one contenders match for the X Division Championship. I think Joe probably won because he was undefeated for a while in TNA. But that match was great. This was even better. The chemistry that these three guys have was off the fucking charts. I think they did a rematch years later, maybe 2009, 2010, and it was pretty good, but nothing will ever top this. And I'm glad they went with it as the main event too. I honestly thought coming into the show, it was the semi-main. Because why would you normally put an X Division Championship match in the main event, I thought Raven and Rhino was closing out the show until I saw Raven and Rhino go on before. I'm like, holy shit, they're actually going with that as a main event. And again, they knew going in it was going to be a show stealer, so they made the right decision in that case. Nowadays, I don't think we would really see that in WWE. I feel like, I know this is Impact fucking 15 years ago, and I'm talking about WWE today, but WWE knowing that, okay, this IC title match will steal the show, let's put it on first. That's what I feel like that's something that they would do, Impact was, not that they always did this, but they were well aware on this show to put the match that they know was going to steal the show and that nothing would ever come close to topping it, put it on last. I thought that was a smart decision. It paid off. The match was amazing. AJ goes over, all new X Division champion. This was a real work of art. I remember watching it for the first time, 2013 maybe? Someone had sent me the link years ago, because it was like the anniversary of the match, like the 8-year anniversary, because this was 2005. I remember watching it in college in 2013. Shout out to Marlon. I think it was Marlon the man on Twitter. I think it sent me the link to the match. And he was like, you gotta check out this match, dude. Like, if you've never seen it, definitely watch it. And I did, and I was like, wow, that was a great match. I think it was also on AJ's Best of TNA DVD, the compilation, or however you say it, DVD a few years ago, the 3-disc set. And I remember watching it back then and thinking, wow, this is amazing. Getting to watch it again here, realizing, wow, this guy is every bit as good as this match is every bit as good as I remember it being. This was 5-star level stuff. I don't know if it's the only 5-star match TNA ever had. I know it was given 5 stars by Meltzer. I'm not sure if any other TNA match was given that same rating. I don't think so. I might be wrong. But if so, it's deserving of that accolade. That's how good this match is. If you've never seen this match, you are missing out. So that is Unbreakable 2005. I think I was going to say the sole match from the show worth watching is the main event, but that's not true. The whole show was great. This is a really, really, really good show. This is TNA in its prime right here. Fucking killing it, putting out a product that was better than WWE most weeks, most pay-per-views. And that main event alone was like, holy shit. If you're not watching TNA, then you should be. So absolutely go out of your way to check out the main event. The Raven and Rhino match, Biss and Sabu match, both those hardcore matches, very, very good. The only match I thought really fell below my expectations was Rude and Hardy. But even that was okay. I just don't like all the interference and Jeff Jarrett being all over the show. I could have done without that. But as a show, I thought this was great. Well worth checking out. Be sure to watch it on the Impact Plus streaming service. And that's going to do it, guys. So be sure to like the video, drop a comment, subscribe, share the video. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. Again, no clue what we're talking about next year on WrestleRant. I do have to go back and watch all the first half pay-per-views of 2018 from WWE and the NXT takeovers just to review here for WrestleRant. So I might pop those out like that in the next number of weeks just to get them out of the way so we can catch up here on WrestleRant for all the shit that we missed. So that WCW shows, ECW shows, if there's any pay-per-views you want me to watch, be sure to send them to me and I'll review them here on WrestleRant. Again, I'll likely just stick with the chronological order stuff just because I think it might be easier to keep track of storylines and get used to certain people. If I watch stuff out of order, then it might be harder for me not being a hardcore ECW guy or a hardcore WCW guy or a hardcore TNA fan even though I've been watching the product since 2008. It might be harder to go back and watch a show from 2007 without watching the build-up from the rest of 05 and 06. You know what I mean? So we'll see. But if you have any suggestions, be sure to tweet me, find me on Facebook, drop a comment down below. All the links to my social media, by the way, are in the description box. But that's going to do it, guys. Have a great rest of your week and month of July. It is July 1st as this goes live. So enjoy the month of July. It's crazy to think the first half of 2018, or 2019, is already over with. And we zoom right ahead to the second half of 2019. So it should be a great remainder of the year. So looking forward to it, guys. Have an awesome one. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.